welcome to the Bible class of Jews for Jesus with Bob Mendelson.
Tonight we're reading Judges chapters 17 and 18. We are done with the judges. There are no more people listed as judges. So these, some people say, are appendices or historical sayings or commentary or situations that happened sometime during the course of those first 16 chapters in the book. We don't know, so if we don't know, we don't speak. The Bible's silent, I'll join it. I don't know. But we do know that there's going to be a serious look into the lives of some individuals, into the leaders of the religion, what we might call priests or elders, and then the whole community itself. And those are really the three aspects where everybody wants religion to work. I want religion to work with Mrs. Goldberg across the street. I want religion to work in my congregation. And I want religion to work in New South Wales. I want whatever you believe, it will be evident in your governance, in your politics, in your religion, and in your personal life. Which is why Barnaby Joyce got in so much trouble. Which is why so many people around Donald Trump get in so much trouble. Or the people in Hollywood have been getting in so much trouble. Because we want it to work in personal lives as well as in national or state lives. Judges 17 and 18 is a punishing, painful description, as we're so used in this particular book to find disappointment in our Jewish people. Lord, help us as we study to learn what you want us to do in Yeshua's name. Now, there was a man of the hill country of Ephraim whose name was Micah. Micah Michayahu. Michaihu. You hear the ending? Yehovah. You hear that? Yeah. Michaihu. So his name already, his parents gave him a name that says you're going to honor God in your life. Who is like God? I want you, grow up boy, to be an honorable God. He said to his mother, the 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from you, you remember that, Mom? 1,100 pieces of silver is a ton of cash, right? About which you uttered a curse in my hearing. Behold, Mom, silver's with me. I took it. Not I stole it, but I took it. That's a softer word. His mother said, blessed be my son by the Lord. I mean, listen to this. The rabbis say this is Delilah. It doesn't say who it is, and I'm surprised if it is Delilah, because even though she was at the end of the last episode, the Bible's pretty clear when it's talking about Delilah, and then a woman. It's going to be somebody different. But I don't mind if you think it's Delilah. I mean, some woman who's got a son has a lot of cash, and Delilah would be wealthy if I read it right. So somebody stole 1,100 gazillion dollars from her, okay? And she uttered a curse. Now, in those days, you utter a curse, it's going to land. Curses mattered to people. And it wasn't just a curse that was out there, wanted, dead or alive, thief of 1,100 pieces of silver, but uttered in my hearing. Hey boy, do you know anything about this? So he's been living in this guilt for some time. And he comes up and says, hey, Mom, yeah, that silver stuff, yeah, that was me. And the mother said, blessed Baruch B'ni Ladonai, blessed be my son by Jehovah. This is great. She pronounces on him the name of God. You think, this is good. She named him for God. She's not upset. You know, she's a forgiving mother. Well, that's sweet. Look what happens. He then returned the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. His mother said, I entirely dedicate the silver from my hand to the Lord for my son, to make a graven image and a molten image. Now therefore I'll return them to you. Boom, boom. Yeah. You think, wait a minute. You had the name of God right. You had forgiveness right, but you don't have the execution of God's covenant right. The very thing you're not supposed to do is to make a graven image. She's breaking at least a couple laws here. Let's see how many more she breaks. So when he returned the silver to his mother took the 200 pieces of silver, gave them to the silversmith, who made them into a graven image and a molten image, and they were in the house of Micah. Poured. It's literally poured, so it's probably melted. Melted means melted. So the melted silver. And the graven is used with a chisel, some kind of carving. And the man Micah had a shrine, made an ephod, household idols, consecrated one of his sons that he might become his priest. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You don't have shrines in your own home. Now in China they do, in Thailand they do, in India do they do? Because they believe in personal gods that oversee their houses. But Shiloh's not too far away. This is the land of Ephraim. What? You're not supposed to do that. We've got a proper location. The tabernacle is there. Go to the right place. You want to dedicate something to God, go there and do it right. Household gods, household shrine. They have a private God. What does God say? First commandment, have no other gods before me. What did they do? Have gods before him. Terrible. Don't make any graven images. What they do? They made graven images. Consecrated one of his sons. So he made these ephod and the household idols. That's the word in Hebrew is teraphim, and it's used of these. So it's really a private God that you could actually carve with a face that looks like somebody you wanted it to look like. You know, Brad Pitt, Madonna, Stoudemire. You could do that. You wouldn't, but you could. So then Micah, who is not a priest, consecrates one of his sons that he might become his priest. Who are the priests? Who can be a priest? Certain Levites. Not all Levites are priests. Which ones were sons of Aaron? The Aaronites, the Cohens. That's right. They're the only ones who could be priests. Micah, you can't do that, buddy. He's making his own religion.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, there you go. And so verse 6 summarizes it. It's the theme of the book of Judges. In those days, Bayamim Hahem, Ein Melech B'Yisrael. In those days, there's not a king in Israel. Ish hayashar be'einav yaseh. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. So Micah depicts that. He represents well the wrong thing to do. Samson represented it wrong. Jephthah grieved with the loss of his daughter having sons or grandchildren. We've seen so much disappointment as we read the book. It's like, why did you put this book in the book? You know, give me some poetry. Give me some nice pleasantries. Give me a book that says, you guys are doing great. You know, I want the happiness quotient. I don't want to read this. However, this is more like us than we want to admit. We want to make God into our image instead of let God be God over us. This is raw. So individually, Micah blew it. Micah's mother blew it. She started with the name right. She forgave right, but they didn't execute right. He failed miserably, but it's not over by a long shot. Look what happens next. Verse 7, there was a young man from Bethlehem in Judah. So there's a couple of Bethlehems, by the way. There's the one up north in Galilee. There's the one in Judah, which is the one that we sing about at Christmas. A little town at Bethlehem, that's right. And it's of the family of Judah. So we've got a young man from the family of Judah who was a Levite. Wait a minute, what's wrong with that? Couldn't be a Levite if he's from Judah. Judah is the brother of Levi. There are refuge cities in every tribal place. Let's see, good question. A city of refuge in every place. Let's see if he's from one of those. And he was staying there. I think King James said sojourning. The Hebrew is ger because he's a stranger there. He's not from there. He's a traveler. Okay? He's traveling through Judah, but he's a Levite. Okay. The man departed from the city from Bethlehem in Judah to stay wherever he might find a place. So he's a hitchhiker. He's a backpacker. Okay? He's an Israeli backpacker. And as he made his journey, he came to the hill country of Ephraim to the house of Micah. There's Micah. So this could be good. We've got a young man who's a Levite. Levites could be a priest. Maybe he'll be the real priest. Maybe this will be good. Maybe he'll help. Because Levites were charged to do a couple things. What were their responsibilities? Maintaining the place where God dwelt. And what was their other function? Performing the activities there, including making sure it remained proper. They served the priests. That's right. And they set up the wicks and the candles and the perfume and the incense and all that. And brought the animals, held the animals for the slaughter and such. But they also were the teacher of the Jewish people. But that was their job, was to maintain and proclaim or teach the ways of God. Micah said so he came to the house of Micah. Micah said, hey, where are you from? Not, hi, what's your name? But anyway, where do you come from? He said, I'm a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah. I'm going to stay wherever I may find a place. He's looking for a place to stay, meaning I want somebody to pay for my lodgment. That's what he's saying. He should have been either in a city that belongs to the Levites, over which they presided. He should have been in Shiloh with the tabernacle. He should have been somewhere where his function was assigned and where food would have been provided. Where is he? He's out on the trail looking for somebody to fill his wallet. You get a picture picture of this guy. Micah said to him, well, dwell with me and be a father and a priest to me. Well, to be, because Micah, this is why the rabbis say that was Delilah, because his father, Samson, would have been killed in the temple bowling. So Micah was longing for a daddy. And a priest to me, and I'll give you 10 pieces of silver a year, a suit of clothes, and your maintenance. I think in the King James it says your victuals, meaning your food. That's it, bed, board, and a little extra. So the Levite went. So what's he really? He's there. He's like, some of you will know the story of Pride and Prejudice. If you got a wife like mine who loves that show, whenever it comes on, she's going to watch it. She's seen it as many times as I've seen Fiddler on the Roof. And she's just glued to it. It could be the one season, one episode. It could be the 6-episode series. Doesn't matter. It could be English, could be American, Aussie. Doesn't matter. She'll watch it. And there is a priest in that show who has a patron. And that patron, Lady Catherine, whatever she says goes, because this guy wants her patronage, meaning to pay. He'll do anything to have her favor, meaning his bed, board, and beyond will be taken care of. It's exactly the kind of guy you don't want to be if you ever become a minister, where you'll change your dialogue, where you'll change your teaching, where you'll change your warnings to more praises, because even though you're doing wrong, it's okay. God no doubt will be on your team. Instead of saying, you're sinning and you need to change. And that's the role of a personal priest, if you will. The Levite agreed to live with the man, and the young man became to him like one of his sons, not like the father. So Micah consecrated the Levite. What? How could Micah consecrate, which means to fill his hand, malayad, to fill his hands, which is an anointing. It's a consecration service. And the young man became his priest and lived in the house of Micah. So it is clear that someone like Micah, who's not an ordainer, ordains someone who should not be ordained. So it's a marriage of convenience, if you will, and it's an embarrassment to holy living. It should have been that the Levite taught and said, here's where you should be going right, but he was succumbing to the need of filthy lucre. He wanted cash in his wallet, and he wanted comfort. I'd say that's not a good formula. And what does Micah say, verse 13? Now I know the Lord will prosper me, seeing I have a Levite as priest. Who did he have before as his priest? His own son. So now Micah's cashed up, and he's bought a really good guy. This is great. The Shark Tank is full. Chapter 18. In those days, just in case you forgot, Ein Melech B'Yisrael. There's no king in Israel. Meaning there's no rule, meaning there's no boundary, and people do what's right in their own eyes. And in those days, the tribe of the Danites was seeking an inheritance for themselves to live in, for until that day, an inheritance had not been allotted to them as a possession among the tribes. You think, well, how'd that not happen? Dan actually lived next to Philistia. Remember, we saw that a couple weeks ago. So the Danites were in the south. But if you know the phrase of Israel, you know that Israel, when you want to talk about it, in Australia we might say from Perth to Sydney, or from Melbourne to Darwin. And we're talking about the full expanse, aren't we? Right? What did they say in Israel? From Dan to Beersheba. Dan meaning up north, Beersheba down in the south. Well, how did Dan go from south to Saphon, to north? We'll see that in this chapter. So they're looking for a place to kind of spread out and put their sheep and cattle and their families. So the sons of Dan sent from their family 5 men out of their whole number, valiant men. I think it says men of valor. Chayil is the Hebrew. You know that word from Proverbs 31? Eshet Chayil, excellent woman. So these were excellent men from Zorah and Eshtaol to spy out the land and to search it. We've already seen that before in Deuteronomy, or Numbers, sorry. They sent the boys out to spy out the land, to search, to get surveys, to come back with Survey Monkey and figure out whether it's a good place or not. And it was a good place. But Dan is going to send out its own. And they said, go, search out the land. They came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah, and lodged there. Wow, what a conflation of story. So Micah, who's just a nobody, all of a sudden now is this pinpoint of the spies as they're wandering around looking for something. So the story zooms in again on the house of Micah. When they were near the house of Micah, they recognized the voice of the young man, the Levite, and turned aside and said, hey, who brought you here? And what are you doing in this place? And what do you have have here? What's going on? Verse 4, he said to them, thus and so has Micah done to me. So he tells the whole story. He tells, so this is the priest, the Levite, who's now been made a priest, who's telling the 5 spies, hey, he hired me and I've become his priest. He's telling the whole story, which is pretty remarkable. They said to him, well then, you go and ask God. Sha'al, go ask of God, inquire of God, please, that we may know whether our way on which we're going will be prosperous. What would that be like in modern day? These 5 guys consider him to be what? If they wanted to go find God's will, they should go to Shiloh. Again, not far. So they're just taking any old guy. Who would he be to them? In modern days, he's a fortune teller. Hey, go do that Urim and Tumim thing. Hey, you've got that ephod, that thing that priests wear. He's probably walking around in it. That we may know whether our way on which we're going will be prosperous. The priest said, well, go in peace. Your way in which you're going has the Lord's approval. I mean, if this doesn't sound like somebody who pastors 20,000 people in Houston, Texas, I don't know what does. Everyone, you will all be winners. Everyone, you will all succeed in life. Give me a break. There are going to be so many failures. There are going to be so many successes. Everyone is not going to win. I can't tell all of us in the rooms tonight that you will all be successful. I wish that were so. I can't tell you all that everything on which you put your foot to do will be prosperous. I wish I could tell you that, but reality bites. We lose sometimes. And God's sovereignty doesn't mean easy victory. Look how many failures Jewish people had in the book of Joshua, in the book of Judges. So far, we're not done yet. And yet, the priest who's paid off here says, I almost feel like there should be a carnival sound in the background. Well, the 5 men departed and came to Laish and saw the people who were in it living in security, after the manner of the Sidonians, quiet, secure. There was no ruler humiliating them for anything in the land, and they were far from the Sidonians, had no dealings with anyone. Check out this turf, the city of Laish. Okay, just a place. Probably up north. Sidonia, Sidon, Tyre and Sidon, Lebanon, modern day Lebanon. So these guys have traveled a good long way from next to Philistia or Gaza all the way up north. They're really making the rounds. And they found a people who were far away from the government that protected them. They were living in quiet and security. Peace and quiet. I feel like Neville Chamberlain should be speaking that. There's no ruler humiliating them. That's a fascinating word to me, that this machlin, this kalam, this humiliation. I wouldn't think that a ruler would humiliate them or bring them low. I would think that it's a ruler who would protect them, kind of like one of the judges over which we've been reading the last, weeks and weeks and weeks. You don't think of a leader as a humiliator unless you talk about Donald Trump. You just don't think about that. You think about leaders who care for their people, leaders who protect their people. But the author here says there's no ruler. Okay, so they're remote. They're far from the Sidonians. They didn't have any dealings with anyone. They're like beyond the black stump, aren't they? They're just so far from New South Wales government house, and they live quietly, and they live on acreage. They've got a sheep station. Just think about it. They're remote. They're self-managed. But when they came back to their brothers at Zorah and Eshtaol, their brothers said, "Hey, what'd you find? What's happening? What's the report?" They said, "Well, all right, let's go up against them. We've seen the land. Behold, it's really, really, it's great. It's top drawer. It's very good. It's Tov Ma'od. And will you sit still? Don't delay. To go. Enter. Possess the land. Come on. Come on. Everybody get up." So they were sedentary back there at base camp with the Danites, waiting for the word back from the 5 spies who've been traveling a good long way. So they're weeks, maybe months away from the initial sending. They come back and they say, "The place is great. Come on. Marshal yourselves. Let's get going." And they're obviously delaying, saying, "Okay, yeah, we'll get to it in a couple weeks. I mean, you guys weren't in a hurry. You went far away, and now you're coming back. So we'll get ready." They're saying, "Come on, get up, arise. When you enter," verse 10, "you'll come to a secure people." The Hebrew word, bateach. Boteach. You know that name? Israel Batach Bashem, Ezra Maginam Hu. Oh, Israel, trust in the Lord. So these secure people were faith-filled people. They were believers. That's the word for faith. faith. Yeah, well, that's why they're secure. They're confident in God. They're confident in the way things are. They've got rest from their neighbors. Spacious land says that they've got plenty of room. They're not in contest with the people up north, the Sidonian, anybody else. They're just having a good life, a quiet and peaceable life. For God has given it into your hand, a place where there's no lack of anything that's on the earth. So it's a prosperous place, and the Danites are now going to go and rip it away from these people. Then from the family of the Danites from Zorah and from Eshtaol, only 600 men went. Armed with weapons of war, they set out. They went up and camped at Kiriath Jearim in Judah. Okay, so they're still south when they leave. They're down in Judah. And they call that place Machane Dan. You know the word Machane, what it means? A compound or a camp, the military word. And it's called that to this day. It's west of Kiriath Jearim. So here they are in Judah with a place called Machane Dan. That helps us understand that Dan used to be south. They passed from there to the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. Wait a minute. Back to Micah. Really? He's the only guy in the territory. He's got the general store. He's got the sign. Check here for mail, Western Union. Then the 5 men who went to spy out the country of the Laish said to their kinsmen, you know that there are in these houses an ephod and teraphim and a graven image and molten image? Come on, consider what you should do. Friends, what should they do? Don't read on. Ruin that place. Burn it down. Destroy it. It was not too many chapters ago in the book of Joshua when the Jewish people won a battle and then one of the fellows, Achan, stole and kept one of the idols, a little bit of the spoil, and as a result we lost the next battle comprehensively. And why did we lose? Because they did a search and found that it was in the house of Achan. We were told don't take anything from those cities, Jericho, Ai, whatever it is. Don't take anything, and he did. And it brought ruin on the entire Jewish people. You'd think with that fairly recent history, with the history of Samson, with the history of Gideon, Barak, all these people, Deborah, you'd think they'd come up and say, wow, here's a Jew, he's got those idols, look out buddy, I'm coming in, I'm taking those things down. Like the Navy SEALs, come on, go get them. Well, is that what happens? Verse 15, they turned aside there, came to the house of the young man, the Levite, to the house of Micah, and said, how you doing? Asked him of his welfare. Now he's dressed like a priest. They assume he's a priest. He's wearing the ephod. He's got the teraphim. He's got these things that make him look like he's a kosher guy, but outsides can be deceiving. The 600 men armed with their weapons of war, and it says that every time, that they were armed, that they were chagar, that they were chagurim, that they were strapped on. I mean, these guys were like Yasser Arafat. What? Yeah, Arafat, you never saw him in any time he was in public, and he was not in military garb. He was always on duty as we want to say jihadist, but we should just say representing those Arabs. Armed with their weapons of war, who were of the sons of Dan, stood by the entrance of the gate. Okay, this is good. They're armed for battle. 5 men who went to spy out the land went up and entered there and took the graven image and the ephod and the household idols and the molten image. All right, this is great. They're stealing them back. They're taking them. This is great. Maybe they're going to bury them, burn them. What are they going to do? While the priest stood by the entrance of the gate with the 600 men armed with weapons of war. So it looks like they're taking the bads. These aren't goods. These are bads, right? And they took them. Excellent. Let's see what else happened. When these went into Micah's house and took the graven image, the ephod, the household idols, and the molten image, the priest said, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Wait a minute. You're the priest. What are you doing? You're the priest. Why are you allowing this? And they said to him, be silent. Put your hand over your mouth and come with us. Wait a minute. Why are they taking him? They know him already as a useless fellow. They know him already as a man who only wants to cushion his wallet. They know him already as an accommodator to sin. He might dress right, but he's not living right. Put your hand over your mouth and come with us. It's a gag order. Be to us a father and a priest. Wait a minute. Be to us a priest. Wait a minute, you fellows. You came to Micah's house. You saw these household gods. You know that he's not living right. You know the priest is endorsing it. They came to him first. Why do you want him with you? Why do they want him? Why do you think they want him? He was the favoring one. He said, we're going to win. The good luck charm. I'm going to take my rabbit's foot with me. And if he brings those little gods gods and a molten image, if that helps him hear from God and God tells him through those amulets that we're going to win, bring that boy, bring his toys. Instead of somebody standing up and saying, those toys are sin, get those out of the house of God, get those out of the land of God, or we're going to suffer the judgment of God. So he now is bought out further. So he was already accommodated by Micah. Now somebody else came and offered him free agency and a better deal. The priest's heart, verse 20, is happy. He's happy as Larry. Is it better for you to be a priest to the house of one man or to be a priest to a tribe and a family in Israel? Yeah, you can be somebody. You've got a small gig. We can put you in big stadia. We can put you in front of TV audiences. We can make you into somebody. Come on, priest, you unnamed priest. We don't even know his name, do we? I think we do, and somebody knew his name and said he doesn't deserve to be listed. We're not even going to give him honorable mention. So verse 20, Vayitav Lev, the priest's heart was tov, or glad. And he took the ephod and the household idols and the graven image and went among the people. They didn't take the molten one. Maybe they left it there. What was it molded from? They got it from the silver that he took back at the beginning from his mother. They turned and departed, put the little ones and the livestock and the valuables in front of them. In a way, that's care. In another way, you want to put them behind you. You protect the little ones. Or that's right, if you want, make a wagon train and put them in the middle. They turned and departed, and put the little ones, livestock, and valuables in their front. I guess they were protecting the little ones from what would be chased from behind. Very interesting. When they'd gone some distance from the house of Micah, the men who were in the houses near Micah's house assembled and overtook the sons of Dan. So here are the neighbors. Here's Micah's neighbors. Why is he not assembling? Why is he not marshaling? We don't see. We don't know. But they chased. This is the posse. They came chasing after these thieves who stole the goods or bads. They cried to the sons of Dan, who turned around. So that makes sense. They spun their faces and said to Micah, what's the matter with you that you've assembled together? So the thieves turn and say to Micah, so is Micah there or is it just his representatives? It doesn't say. We'll see it in a moment. What's the matter with you? What's the matter you? Why are you chasing us? He said, well, you've taken away my gods which I made. So now who is that? Micah. That's Micah. So now we do see Micah there. It's just weirdly introduced. He said, you've taken away my gods which I made and the priest and have gone away. And what do I have besides? You stole everything. So how can you say to me, what's the matter you? Don't you understand? I'm broke. I'm empty. My life is sad. I don't have my lucky charm. I don't have my own priest. I had everything and now you guys have everything and I don't have any more money. The sons of Dan said to him, don't let your voice be heard among us, or else fierce men will come upon you. The Hebrew word is mare nefesh. These are bitter souls. Fierce men will fall upon you and you will lose your life with the lives of your household. You think it's bad now? If you don't get out of here, some of our boys are going to take you down. So the sons of Dan went on their way. It doesn't look like they ran. They just moseyed on. And when Micah saw that they were too strong, chazak, for him, he turned and went back to his house. So there's some walking going on. And this returning, this went, is really yashuv, the return. So it was a confrontation, and Micah was smart for a moment. Said, these boys have more guns. These boys have more army. These boys have the power, and I don't. And I don't know that he didn't think they've got the priest, and they've got the silver gods, and they're lucky. My lucky charm is not their lucky charm. Because he had faith in the wrong thing. So they took what Micah had made. What did he make? Yeah, he made the idols. So they took the idols and the priest who had belonged to him. Highest bidder wins the priest. There's the carnival. And they came to Laish, to a people quiet and secure. There's shakat, they're shoket, like sheket, like be quiet. And there it is, that word boteach. They're resting, they're faithful, they're secure. And so these people struck these Laishites, if you will, they're Jews, with the edge of the sword, and they burned the city with fire. There was no one to deliver them. So they're living so comfortably because no one would disturb them, because who would want it? Who wants owns that place? Well, the Danites did. It was far from Sidon, and they had no dealings with anyone, and it was in the valley which is near Beth Rechob, and they rebuilt the city and lived in it. That's common, by the way, in ancient civilizations. You burn down a proper place, and you build on that same place. And if you go to anywhere in Greece or Italy, you go into Israel for sure, and you see layer upon layer upon layer of ancient civilization all the way across. They called the name of the city Dan after the name of Dan, their father, who was born in Israel. Not geography, but what's Israel? That's Jacob. Yeah, so Dan was his father. Jacob was Dan's father. However, the name of the city formerly was Laish. The sons of Dan set up for themselves the graven image. Whoa, no, really? You took the graven images and you're going to use it? Shame. You want to ruin yourselves? Keep breaking the top 10 commandments. Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of, buckle your seatbelt, it says Menashe, doesn't it, in all of our versions. That's because there's a nun in that word, but the nun written in the Torah in this place is a superscript. You know what I mean by that? Like the 2 in the formula, x squared equals y. The 2 is an exponent, so it's exalted, it's lifted up off the, it's not on the bottom line, it's raised up. It's a superscript. It's written above, super above script written. If there were no nun added, see if you can hear the word that it might be. Menashe. No. So what's the word Menashe without the nun? Moshe. And Moshe's son was Gershom. And the rabbis added the nun because how dare the writer of Judges indict the grandson, Jonathan, of Moses as being an idolater. So they made it into Menashe, kind of like we do on the TV, on the news, when some bad guy, whose parentage is good, is rubbed out. You know, they'll do that on the TV where the face is unrecognizable. They'll put a little gel in front of it, right? A little computer operation. So that the identity is not noticed, because they don't want to defame the father or the grandfather. But it's clear to me that this Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Moses, he and his sons were priests to the tribe of the Danites until the day of the captivity of the land. This Jonathan, who worshipped using a graven image, is the grandson of Moses. And that is a shame. Not on Moses. It's not Moses' fault. Everybody's responsible for their own sins and their own righteousness. But I find it scandalous that the rabbis would add a nun, a letter N, just to protect the honor of the name of Moses. So they set up for themselves Micah's graven image, which he had made all the time that the house of God was in Shiloh. So here they are in Dan, up north. And while the house of God was there in Shiloh, where real worship was happening, false worship was happening all over the tract, using silver that Delilah, or at least Micah's mother, extended to him as a thank you gift or a parting gift. Well, thanks for playing our game of forgiveness and confession. So here Micah is given a couple hundred pieces of silver. He builds it, he doesn't go use it for good. He builds a molten image, and that has followed the Jewish people all the way until the captivity in 722 BC. It's just a terrible story. Why does this happen? What's the root of all evil?
Money.
What? Not money. Love of money, that's right. The love of money. So Micah is loving money. How do I know that? He stole $1,100,000 from mom. He had, dishonor your mother? How's that for breaking one of the 10? Lie to your mother by not confessing for the first while when she made the curse public, and building a graven image. But I think the writer of Judges zooms in on him to show how in all 3 enterprises, in personal life, in our tribal life, that is our religion, and in our government, we can be tainted. Look at the Danites and what they did. Look at the the Levite, who becomes the priest for sale. He's a mercenary Levite who makes a living off the back of people who will say, yeah, why don't you be a priest and say good things to us? Everybody in this double chapter is out of bounds. Everybody's breaking the law of Moses. Even the guys who want to keep the name of Moses from harm are breaking the law of Moses when he said, don't add to this law. You think, why would you keep that in your book? If you were a holy people, you would want to to say, and yeah, we did really well. So there's that Adam and Eve thing. But after that, we got it right. It'd be a much shorter book. But the reality is, you and I get it wrong so often. The only people who in this story were good guys, who were they? The Laish people, who were probably related to the Sidonians. Whether we don't know whether Laish owned Sidon or Sidon owned Laish, but whatever. I think the government was up on the north in Sidon, Lebanon today, and that's where the government was enacting. The Laishites were just living life well, and they were living secure. Boteach, Yisrael, Batach Bashem, trusting God. You know that's the center line of the Bible. Psalm 118. Yisrael, Batach Bashem. O Israel, trust in the Lord. Izram umaginam hu. Your strength and your shield is He. That's the center. That's the fulcrum of the whole Bible. Trusting God. And here they were. So when I say, dear friends, trusting God doesn't mean everything goes well, I mean it. Because the people in this story who trusted God got murdered, their town burned, and their story eradicated because the name of the city got changed. It's a story that's pretty sad. And we do see that in tomorrow I leave for a couple weeks, and I will be preaching every night about Yeshua in churches in Kansas and Missouri. On the last night of my stay there, it will be Good Friday. It's also the first night of Passover. And on Passover, we're just a bunch of people remembering 3,500 years ago what God did. Not because we were so epis. In fact, we were pretty grumbling. We were pretty much unhappy people with the whole situation. Hey, Moses, who made you the boss? Get us out of this thing. And you see it through the record of the wandering in the wilderness that we didn't exactly make Moses man of the year. And yet Moses and a few others were faithful. 1,500 years after that, Yeshua, like the Laishites, was trusting his Father. And on that day, which we call Good Friday, Yeshua is killed by some Roman, crucified in a horrible way, beaten, mocked, ridiculed, kangaroo court. It was a terrible shame of the judicial system that did not enact itself well in Rome, there in Jerusalem. And Yeshua was killed. Did he trust his Father? 100%. Yeah. And yet. So, friends, trusting God doesn't mean everything's going to go really well and you'll always get, $100,000 when you buy that one scratchy. And your team will not always win in the NRL. And your family situations may be not so good. Trusting God doesn't mean everything is peachy keen. It just means you know who owns you and to whom you can go when things are a serious mess. That's trust. Friday night, I went to Rockdale. Somebody came in the shop that afternoon, Friday, and said, by the way, Fiddler on the Roof is playing at the Rockdale Town Hall. I thought, Patty's got book club tonight. I'm off duty. I can go see Fiddler. I love the show. I've seen it dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of times. But I got to tell you, friends, that I've never felt what I felt on Friday night. The second half, I entirely cried. The entire second act. I was a blubbering fool. For a moment in my history, on Friday night, I relived some of my history from over 4 decades ago, when my father threw me out of the house, like Tevye dismissed his own daughter, the third, and I was the third child to my papa. And the rejection of my life and the family, being tossed from a Jewish family, is the worst thing. Pain, and I just let it sit. I looked at the emptiness of the Jewish community depicted in that show, though there's a bottle dance and it's a lot of fun. Still, I guess we'll have to wait for the Messiah somewhere else. I've felt that pain. Even as Goldie and Tevye are talking about, even as she swept the house in Anatevka, because I don't want the Cossacks to come to a dirty house. I think she's making it more empty, though she's signing it, if you will, with her cleanliness. There's just emptiness. And as we know, that's why we're praying for our Jewish friends, we're praying for our Jewish contacts, we're praying for the Jewish people, why we're supporting Behold Your God, Jerusalem, and such efforts, because we know that they are empty and desperately need the love of God in Messiah. So I tell you that to say that those tears didn't just stop when the final song stopped, because I kept crying all the way home. I thought the police are going to pull me over and say, have you been drinking? And I'll say, I wish they didn't pull me over. I went to bed. I cried. I woke up. I cried. There's something about trusting God that doesn't mean everything will be happy as Larry. It just means I know to whom I can go when I feel that depth of pain and suffering. And it's a good thing to do. I don't know if seeing live theater makes it more real than seeing the movie, but I think so. And I really felt it. We used to say, we're macho guys. We don't, those are, that's for girls, right? We get in touch with our feminine side. Remember that? We would say that. Well, I don't care if it's feminine. And if so, I'm bi. Because it's really important. He made his body, soul, and spirit. And those feelings are real. And then I could come through and batach b'Hashem, I could trust in the Lord again in a real way. So I experienced it. And maybe you will in another way tonight, next week, from now on. And that's Judges 17 and 18.